Indeed. Start with a roll call. Brooke Boyd.
Here.
Dan Carlson.
Here.
Corey Schmidt.
Here.
Brooke Culbert's
Here.
and myself is here. Thank you for joining us. Persons who requested with an audience with the board, there are none. So we will move on to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
That was fun for a team.
I'll second.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Number 4, planning and developing our facilities to best meet educational, safety, and security goals. A, facility planning, which we have Miss Debbie on the line. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Look at, oh, you are cute.
Hello.
How's
Hi,
Debbie?
Good to see everyone tonight.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the flexibility today in terms of letting me hop in virtual. So I have for you today an updated scenario for you. If you recall, last time I was there, we had 3 scenarios on the summary page. Today we have 4. The 4th one being the level principle, which was the ask last session. So we have highlighted the similar rows in terms of the estimated interest cost and the estimated mill rate impact. And so again, why this is important, these numbers will change if the district chooses to move forward with referendum, and if the referendum passes and moving forward with the financing plan. But what the goal is in this discussion is to talk about a structure that the board is comfortable with, because that structure then will help us determine which estimated impact will get used for the survey if the board chooses to move forward with the survey. So a lot of detail that we're talking about now that we would typically do later, but it's important because the structure matches the impact which goes into the survey if the board goes forward. So the level principle is estimated at the lowest interest cost and the highest impact, estimated impact. And if April, if you go to the next slide, please, I'll explain a little bit. We have some additional visuals that go along with this. So we'll see the detail of the level principle in a moment, but because we're doing full principal payments early on, the greatest impact comes in the early years. And actually, if this graph went out to 45, 46, we would see the bars decrease. And so this, like the 2 scenarios we saw last time, the largest impact comes in that 2nd year. So we have $1.31 for the estimated impact for 24-25, which we know is still an estimate today. We're still waiting on some state numbers for that to finalize. But as the new debt or the old debt falls off, new debt gets added on. In this structure, the 2nd year is estimated to be the largest impact. And so we would communicate the largest to be clearest to the taxpayers as to the maximum we would expect it to increase, and the difference between the estimate for 24-25 and the highest point of the financing plan as it's layered on, being in 26-27 in this structure, it's the 91 cents. And what that looks like in numbers, if you go to the next page, in the detail, I've highlighted the differences in yellow just as I did last month. And so the reason why we don't call this a level debt service, we call this more of a level principal, is that when we keep the principal steady, but the interest decreases over time because we've paid off more principal, it creates larger payments at the front end in the initial years, and then it decreases over time. So it would be an atypical structure, but it is something that the board could choose to move forward with if you were comfortable with the estimated impact of 91 cents. So to outline this in more detail, we have your existing Fund 39. We have the same 2 phases. We have the first phase, we have the level principal throughout the second phase. And the sum of the two then, of the new financing combined with the old in the initial years, and of course, when it falls off, it would just be on the new. So next page, please. So I took off the detail of the homes just to provide space for kind of a global picture of it. And just to remind you, so we help with packaging this and helping you access the municipal market. We are not impacted by the interest cost of the plan, and so I'm not making a recommendation either way. The lowest estimated interest cost is going to be one where you pay off principal more quickly, but it in turn is going to have an estimated higher mill rate impact. The lowest estimated mill rate impact is going to have the highest interest cost over time. And the biggest impact is going to be in the first 4 years based on these financing plans. So I think one of the biggest question is, in my mind, as I was trying to lay it out logically, is do you want the taxpayers in the next 4 years to pay more so that over the remainder of the years, taxpayers could pay less? And if the answer is yes to that, then we would look at the 3 scenarios on the right. And then the question is how much more would you want them to pay over the next 4 years so that it's lower after? If you don't want the taxpayers in the next 4 years to pay more so that others could pay less, then we would look at the wraparound of the first one.
Debbie, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I see on the bottom the notes, the assumptions that were made, that the mill rate is based on like a 2% growth in the equalized valuation. But you guys have a estimated, and I know it will be certified next week, what that really is, but you haven't factored it into any of these calculations.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Sorry, go ahead. That is correct. So we provide an estimate for you. The state will release the actual in October. So what will happen is, they'll be based on our estimate, the equalized valuation would increase, and therefore the potential impact otherwise could go down. The reason why we didn't change it at this point is because the taxpayers haven't gotten their tax bills yet, and so if we were using the new value, tell me if I don't explain this well, but if we were using the new value and it decreased the mill rate impact, but as taxpayers are analyzing how that amount would impact them, and they were using an amount from a previous tax bill, it could potentially understate the impact to them. And so we wanted more of an apples to apples comparison as we potentially looked at the survey. And because you haven't decided the final levy and mill rate. So this is an example of what I mean, where the variables will change and will continue to update. We're just hoping the board can help guide us on the structure that they prefer so that we can narrow down then the numbers from there. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah, and I know that the equalized value, like in the last 5 years, has really gone up because of the market of the housing and all of that. But would we be better off taking an average of 5 years or even 10 years because it was slower the first 5, instead of just this maybe 2%? Because I feel that the 2% is probably pretty low estimate. And then my other comment is, yes, the school mill rate is based off the equalized value, but individual property taxes are based on the assessed value, and the two are not always the same.
Correct, you're right, assessed and equalized aren't. The reason why school districts use equalized though is because we overlay multiple municipalities.
Right.
And so by us using a mill rate based on equalized value, this allows us to help them enter their fair market value and get to a more accurate estimate for this specific scenario. So in order for them to get the most accurate estimate, we need to stay in the equalized value world, which is where ours gets distributed.
Right, because the mill rate is figured on the equalized value.
Correct, you
But
got it.
the individual tax statements are not. Just so people are aware of that.
And I think it's important.
And then
also-
just, yeah, then just last thing, coming back to the property value. When we update with this year's valuations, I wanna say 25 valuations, but, technically they're 24. We probably, we hesitate to go higher than 2% growth thereafter because it can understate then the mill rate impact. We can talk about that more as we kind of move forward with the plan. But we try to avoid inflationary growth of property. We try to recognize, we'd rather underestimate and come in better. But if you wanted to look at something like 2, 3, or 4%, we can definitely weigh that in. So I think tonight we're really hoping to get an idea of structure that the board is comfortable with. And then we can fine tune other details from there.
Becky, did you have something to say? I just wanna make sure that it's really, really clear that we don't get to pick how our taxes are. This is what's told we have to use the fair market value. It's not a school board sitting at the table saying, ha, here's how we're gonna do it. Because I get asked that often.
Nor do I want.
Nope, I don't want to do that. Nope.
Like, I think it's also important to note that, you know, as these assessed values are coming in higher than they have been in the past for some municipalities and villages, that doesn't equate to more money for the school district. We get what we get on the revenue limit based off of our enrollment, multiplied what the state dictates per member.
Got it.
So Debbie, what do you need from us tonight?
Yeah, so, and I do have the detail of all the scenarios we have after this, but really so we're hoping tonight you can help guide us on the structure that you like, the wraparound, the level aggregate, the level by issue, or the level principal, so that as you finalize the levy for this year, we can use that structure with this year's numbers and have prepared for you the estimated impact for the survey, if the board chooses to continue to move forward with that.
So, one of the questions I have, and I don't know Shannon or Jay, so if we went with the level principal, I know it's the highest impact, but would that end up raising our mill rate above what it was in the 23-24 school year?
That was my question too.
Good question.
Or would it leave it similar?
I'm looking to,
We were at 694 last year, we're asking about 562 for this revenue limit, so adding in 91 cents will still put us below the 964 for 23-24.
For me, I would like to do the level principal only because the whole total package impact to the taxpayers is so much less.
And I get that, but when people are already complaining about new assessments being done out there right now in certain parts of our area, and they find out we chose the one that was the 91 cents compared to a 14-cent one, a lot of people are gonna lose their minds over that. We're already voted no on the last one. I agree with you. It makes more sense that we were saving like $3.5 to $4 million by doing a level. But that impact, I think is gonna set some people over the edge. I mean, there's people that are gonna vote no because they can't even afford the 14 cent.
But because municipalities are doing a reassessment does not mean that their property taxes will go up.
No, but
It's a much bigger conversation, but it's not our conversation here, I don't think.
But our conversation has to revolve around what's best for our district, and I don't know, I think a majority of us think that the elementary school needs to get done one way or the other. And the way conversations have been going, there's a lot of people that aren't understanding how taxes work. They just see numbers or they see the whatever, and it's automatically, they feel like the world is caving in on them. And so, I know what you're saying, I'm just saying though, not everyone looks at it that way, they just see this and, I don't know, I don't think we have a good chance of it passing if we do the level. I love the level, because to me, we save a ton of money. But ideally, if we're gonna have any chance of this passing, I don't think the level stands a chance of passing. So that's, I've been wrong many times in my life, I just don't think it would.
So, my question was gonna be to Shannon / Debbie as kind of a side note, so reassessments, hot button item, everybody's up in arms about reassessment. Can you explain how that works in our municipalities, just for clearing the air of it, Debbie or Shannon?
I'm gonna let Debbie take that one.
Okay.
Okay, I couldn't see Shannon was everyone. So, how detailed do we want to go? So let's start with, the state comes through every year. And because school districts, counties, and technical colleges overlay multiple municipalities, they come through every year and adjust assessed value to fair market, so that we school districts and counties and technical colleges are, as our levy goes out to municipalities, it's more fair that, and a municipality couldn't purposefully not reassess in order for their taxes to stay low. So each year, the state is looking at the assessed value and they're adjusting. So oftentimes when property is reassessed, it's really just bringing that property back to where the state has said it should have been throughout the years. And so the biggest impact comes in the individual's assessment relative to the others. So for instance, if a municipality reassesses and I refinished my basement or put an addition on in that time frame, and so my reassessment went up 60%, while my neighbors went up 20%, that's when you're most likely to feel an impact from a reassessment. If everyone in the municipality adjusts by 20% to get back to where the state said they should have been, it's less likely they'll feel a sizable adjustment relative to the prior years.
So, and that's mandated by the state in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes.
Correct.
That isn't done at a local level or a school board level, that is done by the state.
Correct.
And you don't know that your municipality is being reassessed ahead of time?
No.
Right, so we have no way of knowing the villages next year, or Farmington, we have no way of knowing, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie, though, the assessed value isn't updated every year.
Correct.
Because municipalities have to do it, are required like every 5 years, unless they haven't fallen below a certain percent. But, so the assessed value doesn't change unless they have made improvements possibly on their property. So my assessed value could be the same for 5 years. While the market value, which is equalized value, I could see increasing every year being adjusted by what the equalized value is happening at the state level, which impacts that municipality or within our school district. Is that a fair statement?
Correct, so the municipality needs to be within, and this isn't I can send a link to a Department of Revenue resource on this, but they need to be within 10% every 5 years. And so they are not reassessing every year, whereas Jan's right, every year the state comes through with the fair market adjustment. And how you can see on individuals' tax bills, the Department of Revenue will list the assessed value. And like Jan said, that could stay the same for 5 years. They also list the fair market value, which is a synonymous term with equalized value, so it means the same thing. And then the assessment ratio is the ratio of the two. So if your ratio was exactly 1, that would mean that the state felt that that municipality was assessed exactly at fair market value. A ratio above 1 means that they're over-assessed, and a ratio below 1 means they're under-assessed. Each year they're looking at this and adjusting based on the state as a whole. And again, not something the district has any control over. It is
Just another variable that we have to put into our formula, essentially.
you got it.
Well, and the municipalities do not have control
Correct,
over it either.
right.
It's done by state statute.
The fair market value, correct. You got it.
So if I were to simplify this, Debbie, as these 4 options, and say that I'm gonna buy a car for $27,200, we're gonna drop it down. I have 4 options of funding in front of me. I have the option of a lower monthly payment, and I know that I'm gonna pay more interest because the total years of my loan are not changing. Or I can take a higher payment and know that I'm going to pay less over the course of that loan, but I'm gonna have a higher monthly payment. Does that seem accurate?
Correct. Primarily in those initial 4 years.
So that essentially is the question at hand before us tonight, is to decide what. Yep, so the years of it are staying the same, right?
Correct.
21-year loan.
Yeah.
I'm either gonna have a lower monthly payment, but I'm gonna pay more over the course of that 21 years. Or I'm gonna have a higher monthly payment, but I'm gonna pay less over the course of those 21
It'll
years.
decrease as that loan goes on.
But the 91 cents is the highest, right? So that's the average?
Yeah, but look at how fast the payments drop on the, and it stays in line with the other ones. I think if you look at the level principal one, you see it high for, they're pretty close in alignment to what the payments are, even on the other ones. It's just that the principal amount is dropping, so you're paying less interest.
And if we, let's say you took any of these with the exception of the level principal, then you made extra payments, would that then, I'm assuming that's going to decrease your estimated total interest cost,
Correct.
which historically we have done as board. We have made extra payments, saving on interest. So that's always another option for variable too, right? Cause that's the most, essentially, the most interest that would be paid. I'm in the camp with Corey. I believe that the vast majority of our taxpayers believe that we have to do something, and to try to explain to most people these options. I think they're gonna go right to nickels and dime and read across to the lowest impact monthly, because I think a lot of our taxpayers are living month to month and paycheck to paycheck, and that has the least amount of impact. Now, not to say that that's not going to come around, you know, at year 20 and they're gonna say, oh, I wish I'd done things different, but that would be no different with my car, right? Like, if I was buying my car for $27,200, so I tend to lean more towards the wraparound option.
Debbie, one thing you have to have a decision, or is it, we have to decide and give you the answer, or we have to do it, so we do it in the,
We need to
Needs a
know, so we,
direction.
yeah, we need a direction to be able to provide, to get the survey published and put together. That's what we need.
The level principle is what I personally Jan, but I think Corey and Brooke are right, that if we wanna get it done, what the community is gonna see is the lower amount on their taxes. That's what they're going to do if they choose any of them.
So, and we can always. Sounds like. Were you gonna ask Shannon if you had thoughts?
I was just gonna ask Shannon, Becky,
Me too, right?
how do you guys have anything to add or say or thoughts?
It's tough.
It's do you have people have a break within the first 5 years? And, it's all about who's using it now, you know, who's the most current users of it and what will be taxed and how many of those people are gonna be here in 20 years or the inverse of it.
I also think that maybe this number looks so low that people won't believe that it could be that number.
Hmm.
You know, maybe they're not gonna believe whatever we put for it, but, I mean, it doesn't, certainly $56 or 35 or 14 is,
That's my opinion.
yeah, but it might be so low that it's like, could it actually be possible that it would be that low?
Really thinking anything? Added?
I was
Added,
gonna
like,
ask
I'm
Addie,
out.
what option do you prefer, Addie?
I'm still trying to understand all of it.
It's a lot. It took me a long time to wrap my brain around this stuff.
No matter what, there's gonna be people that don't agree with you. That's hard.
Debbie, how many, and I know you probably do not know this, but how many additional debt payments would it take to save that amount in interest between the first option and the last option?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
And again, I know you probably don't know that off the top of your head, you may have to run
Yeah.
a calculation.
I don't off the top of my head, I was just trying to look at the detail
Cause we already have one layered in for this year.
of. I hesitate to even
Yeah.
guess,
Mm-hmm.
I understand,
honestly.
but there would be a way to figure it out.
But it's gonna,
Correct.
but it's, well, I suppose,
it'll
the
depend on
level
what years you
principle.
do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
what-
that's what I was
Correct.
looking at the, if it's
The
years.
greatest savings would be if we repaid the final maturity, similar to what you've been doing.
But if that's what you're gonna do, then why aren't we then doing it at one of the other rates? If the whole thing is you're gonna continue to levy for extra payments because you wanna keep the mill rate somewhat flat. And then why not just do the one, because it's not gonna the mill rate would still be lower than what we were currently at.
And to me, as a person who had the opportunity to have conversations with people about their taxes, saying $227 versus $35 is a huge significance. And to try to explain what we've explained here over 3 different meetings is really hard. And I'm not saying can't be done. I'm saying that when you're marketing to a community and the voice is coming to a meeting, you have 11 people coming of a whole community, and they need to be able to see it in the simplest form. I haven't met very many people yet who say, you need to pick the most expensive and do that to save us money in the long run. I just haven't. So again, what you do in your personal life and what we do professionally and then what we do for a community are all very, very different pieces. And whatever y'all decide, we will do our very best if the community has an appetite for it. Because we may find out in the survey, they don't have an appetite for $14 even.
Correct.
But I haven't heard a lot of people say that there's a remarkable amount of thought about the interest. The interest in publicizing it, what we're actually paying, yes, that conversation is yes, absolutely.
Debbie, our last referendum, we had a lot of people that were saying that we weren't being truthful in the amount that we were asking for, because we, we're asking for a loan in the amount of $27,200,000, but then we're paying another $17 million in interest. So really what we should be saying is we're asking for those 2 numbers put together. I know that that's not true, because if I was buying my car, I wouldn't go to the bank and say, I actually need this much because that's how much it's gonna cost. But how do you explain that to the average, not sitting at a board table person?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the ballot by statute will say if you move forward, would say the 27,200,000. It gives you the authority to borrow up to that. We can put in the communications, the interest. I think what's really important, and I know I shared this, the first scenario, or the first meeting, we're using in this scenario a 475 for the first phase and 5.25 for the second phase of the borrowing. And we ran a sensitivity with that and said if we were borrowing at rates more representative of today, that we would save about 1.8 million on interest costs. And so part of the trick, and this is a tricky part, not trick, the tricky part in this, is that we want to use planning rates so that we can come in at or better, but that then has interest costs higher than we would do in today's market. And so we would just want to make sure that we want to make sure to say the 27.2 because that's what the ballot's going to say. I think in your communities specifically, we want to make sure that we highlight the estimated interest. But I think we also have to talk about how we're using planning rates that allow for fluctuations, and in today's market, the total interest cost would be lower, but we want to make sure that we can deliver on the estimates we provide. We hate to underestimate. So I think that's the additional component we need to make sure that we mention. Yeah, but we want to make sure that we use the 27.2 that it's clear that that's what the ballot's going to show in some way, somewhere.
It sounds to me, I'm hearing that we're leaning towards moving forward, putting the majority of the wraparound option. And I do agree for our community, that's what's best for all as a whole. Debbie, are you needing further clarification or information or?
don't, the direction is helpful.
Does the board have other questions?
Okay, well, thank you, Debbie, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And then just to come back, one last thought on this. As I hear you talking, I hear the estimated interest is really important. And so when we do update the plans, I talk oftentimes that, and I just mentioned this 1.8 million in estimated interest, you can recognize that interest savings as lowering the mill rate or paying it off quicker in order to save on interest. So I hear in this conversation that the 14 cents is our estimate that we're using, but any sort of favorable variables that come in, the goal would be to reduce interest cost, pay it off quicker.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay,
All right, well, you take care.
Thank you, Debbie.
thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Now can I disconnect this April? Okay, good. I have April 12th. Okay. 5, aligning, developing, and supporting our staff. We have a family-friendly workplaces presentation
Mr. Neal.
by Mr. Neil Line.
Hello, hello.
Good evening.
It's been wonderful to be here. I'm on the village board, and it's always fun to watch other people wrangle over money and not me. So I appreciate that discussion. That's very enlightening to watch. I live here in Osceola, and I'm the executive director at Family Friendly Workplaces. And so I've had the chance to talk with Becky about our program and what we do, and was invited to come to the board tonight and talk about the program and what we do. And so I'm gonna try and move quickly through this. I know people have lives, and I wanna try and be efficient with everyone's time. But to explain what the program is and to invite the district to consider participating ultimately in it. So we will get into it, and the clicker is working. So I like to start these off by talking about what we,
Back here, over here.
yeah, sorry, don't worry about it. What we at Family Friendly Workplaces believe, which is we really think that families are central, not only to the individuals that make up those families, but to the communities that are built from those families. And so if we are able to positively strengthen families, we can have a really positive impact on both sides of that equation, if you will. We work through employers because y'all touch a lot of lives. When you think about the number of lives connected to a job that you offer, there's a real opportunity to impact a lot of folks. And we work through employers as well because we have a workforce shortage. And so we're gonna spend a little bit of time talking about some data here. This is a chart that shows Wisconsin's statewide net workforce entrance. And the way that you calculate this number is you take the number of 65 to 69-year-olds that are coming into the, or I'm sorry, 65 to 69-year-olds that are departing the workforce as they retire. You subtract that from the 15 to 19-year-olds that are coming in. So you've got workforce eligible people coming in and then folks retiring out, and that gives you this net entrance number. And I have, in another version of this presentation, some color commentary around that 2030 number. There it is. Because this chart is not scaled. So on a statewide basis, Wisconsin is expecting to add about 129 souls to its workforce in 2030, which is insane. I think common sense would tell you that that's not a whole heck of a lot. And then if you look in 2010, that's obviously well below the 34,000 that we were adding to our statewide workforce. Again, this is a statewide number. And the demographics that are playing into this are actually demographics that you guys are at the forefront of, or at least half of the equation. One half is folks are retiring, baby boomers are retiring, so that really causes a lot of departures, but then we're not having as many kids. And that is a phenomenon that is not unique to us, either as a region, as a state, as a country. Across the developing world, people are having less kids, and it's freaking a lot of economists out. And so this is what, that's what's driving the numbers that you see up here. We have the same net entrance data then for every county in the state. And so this chart shows net entrance data for counties in our region. So family-friendly workplaces, we work primarily in St. Croix, Pierce, and Polk County, but I've also included Burnett and Barron just to add some flavor. So we'll start with the lines that are at the top, those light blue and light yellow lines. That's St. Croix and Pierce County. And you'll see they're gonna add about 225 folks apiece to the workforce that year. The way to think about that number is to say, if you're an employer in St. Croix County and you're looking to hire somebody in 2030, you're competing for one of those 200 new entrants, essentially, because they all have to filter their way through the labor market. And there are nuances here. This is just demographics, so there's not in-migration, right? There's people moving into an area, moving out, all kinds of variables. I will focus in on Polk, Burnett, and Barron because you'll see that those lines actually go below zero. So that means that more people are departing the workforce than entering it in those years, which means the workforce in those counties is shrinking. So there are less people, there are less literal bodies available today than there were yesterday and the day before in the labor markets in these counties. And we could be worse. I feel bad for Burnett. You'll notice they've been losing the whole time. But if you look across much of northern Wisconsin, this is the dynamic that you see. That there are shrinking labor markets, and that's going to have a really big impact on local economies. And so what we really try to get people to think about is that this chart is telling us that we have a long-term human resources shortage, and we need to be thinking strategically about what we're going to do to try and address it. Because ultimately, setting aside business expansion, simple maintenance of operations is going to be very difficult to do. And education alongside healthcare has really been at the leading edge of this experience, where it is extremely difficult to find people, teachers, nurses, whatever the case may be. So this rosy chart can help us think about ways out of the mess too. And so we break it out into a couple of different time frames. The first is this immediate time frame. What can we do to help employers recruit and retain talent right now? After that, it's a conversation, and you can tell I'm very original with my naming. Then the medium term is about talent attraction. So how do we get, in particular, and we always joke, you know, if a 5-year-old moves somewhere, they tend to bring their parents. So how do we help attract, in particular, young families to come from over the river? And then over the long term, it's about early childhood, because little kids' brains are getting built right now. And it is in our long term, apart from the moral imperative that everyone have an economically successful life, they're just more valuable than they were before, because there are less of them. And so we've got less room for error, if you think about it that way. So what I'm gonna do is just buzz through these timeframes and talk about our approach. I'm gonna hammer through how our program works and then open it up for questions. Unless anyone has any questions about that data that I've talked about. Okay. To level set, we run the Family Friendly Workplaces Employer Certification Program. It's designed to be an independent third-party credential that employers can use as really a stamp of excellence to communicate the strength of their benefits as they go to recruit and retain talent. We've built it to address all of those timeframes that we talk about and really to support children and families, because that's a really important part of our work. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. If you send us mail, it will go to Woodville. But if you send us an email, it goes to my office here in Osceola, at my house. So I sit here in Osceola. Over this immediate term, the things that are up on this slide are things you're probably already thinking about to try and make sure that you can recruit and retain the talent that you need. So if there are underrepresented demographics, women were quick to leave the workforce during COVID and slow to return, but that has largely worked itself out. Remote working, I can email from everywhere. I can't control a kindergarten classroom from everywhere. So that's not always an option, but certainly for some backroom things, if remote work is possible, you can broaden the talent pool that's available to you. We really focused on these last two pieces, so that's making sure you're competitive to attract new talent and that you're able to retain the talent you have. And the way that we do this is through a matrix that we developed in partnership with a firm called J.D. Counter Alera out of New Richmond. They essentially help us benchmark your benefits to the marketplace. And then when you go through, the more robust or unique your benefits are, the more points you get on our matrix. And so the intention is to give people like you an opportunity to look at your family supporting benefits and benchmark yourselves against the marketplace and think about where you are and where you might like to go with your benefits. So all of that really ties into that immediate term approach. And I can answer questions about that at the end as well. I'll keep it moving. In the medium term then, like I said, we talk about talent attraction. We talk about that through what we call our Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal, or our BHAG, which is that we want Western Wisconsin and Northwestern Wisconsin to become known as the premier destination to come to raise your kids. And there is a real opportunity for us to attract particularly young families if we take that approach from the Twin Cities, because there are about 4 million people that are just over the river from us. And we really talk about that through this graphic, which I call the triad, which I stole from nuclear warfare, but I think it's a really helpful way to kind of think about what we're talking about, because we're close enough to the Twin Cities to use them, but we're far enough away that we don't have to deal with them, right? And we're in that kind of happy middle ground. So that finds expression through this proximity to urban amenities. You can get a flight, you can get dinner or a show. I like to make people think that, or I like to make people think about the fact that we're actually pretty close to an IKEA. No, but we are. And there are a lot of places that aren't. And so that proximity is wonderful, but we don't have to deal with it. And so that comes through the perceptions of safety and cost of living, which is a natural advantage that we have over the Twin Cities. The problem with this is, if you think about Forest Lake has the same shortage we have, and they can say largely these same two things. And so we're not differentiating ourselves relative to the marketplace when we're trying to attract talent. So that's where this concept of family support comes in. And it really gives us an opportunity to differentiate our communities and our employers and begin working to attract talent. We've done a lot of work in this space with WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. And we got a $50,000 grant from them. And I always joke, I got a government grant to do a study. And that is exactly what I did. We went over the river and we asked people about family friendliness and what does that mean to you, particularly for a community, and how can we leverage that into marketing, frankly, to begin getting people more aware of Western and Northwestern Wisconsin. That's the medium term. And then over the long term, we talk about early childhood. And we talk about this with a lot of employers. You guys, I think, naturally understand the importance of early childhood given the work that you do. Plenty of employers, though, look at things and they think, well, I make widgets. What does early childhood have to do with me? And it's a legitimate question. And so we use this skills matrix to try and help kind of convince or convey the story. So this is made by a guy named Brent Orrell, who's at the American Enterprise Institute. And you'll see at the bottom, we have as foundational skills, those, we call them non-cognitive skills. So that's resiliency, communication, initiative. I mean, these are the things that are really important and that we use every day. Then I joke, Timmy's gonna take your crayon in kindergarten and Timmy's gonna take your crayon at work. And how are you gonna handle that? Is essentially what we're talking about. And those skills are learned really early in life. And they're important because then the basic skills that you all teach kids, those are built on that foundation of non-cognitive skills. So if that foundation is not there, that effort is going to fall through, let alone the gobs of money we spend on industry-specific skills. And I kind of think, I wasn't very good at math, so if you wanted me to be a welder, you needed me to learn math in high school, and that was dependent on me being resilient, because multiplication was not my thing. So if we think about skills in that way, we begin to more fully appreciate the importance of early childhood. And we really try to get employers to understand that for kids, a successful early childhood is about the development and maintenance of strong, stable, and healthy relationships in that kid's life. That's 90% of the battle. And we work to try and bring employers along on that. So that's our approach across those timeframes. And now I'm just going to talk, and I'm going to kind of just buzz through this, the things that we do for employers that are in our program. So we give you permission to use our logo, essentially however you'd like. We support internal and external communications. We'll put a pin in that check presentation event because we treat public employers slightly differently. And then we list you in our online directory. All because if you're certified and nobody knows, it really doesn't do you much good. So we want to make sure that we're telling people about your certification. We also then do a whole bunch of other stuff that we think is pretty cool. And all of this is really designed to make sure that your leadership team is connected with the broader community of employers that are working on this and interested in this issue and are connected to resources. And then my personal favorite, oh no, I screwed it up. Wait. Okay, the other one said things we haven't thought of yet. Everybody laughed because it's pretty funny. So all of that goes into this immediate term piece of how do we help make sure you are competitive as you're trying to recruit talent. Over the medium term, you're helping us develop that reputation, like I talked about, and then over the long term, you're helping us support early childhood. And I'm gonna talk about, on this slide, it strangely isn't in it, but I'll talk about it anyway. We do conduit contributions generally for employers, and those are contributions that are directed to 501c3 nonprofits. In public employers' cases, an employer of your size, we charge $500 a year to participate. We keep that money because we don't run off pixie dust, so that helps keep us going. But that would be really the financial commitment from the district to participate. And these are the folks who help us keep the lights on, so 3 cheers for them. But that's my spiel. I blew through that. So are there questions, Becky, are there things that we talked about that I didn't cover that you think we should touch on? Again, the main thing from me would be an invitation to the district to consider participating. CISA 11 joined today, and Unity School District is also a member. And then we also have the City of New Richmond, City of River Falls, and Burnett County is in the program as well. So from a public employer perspective, we've got, I think, a strong foundation of folks who are in the program.
Like how many are in the program?
CISA made 50. So we've got 50 employers primarily across St. Clair, Pierce, and Polk County. We're getting a little bit over into Eau Claire. Other public employers, UW, Eau Claire, River Falls, and Stout are in the program, and then CBTC, Chippewa Valley Technical College, and Northwood Tech are also in the program as well.
FYI, I did notice that at River Falls when I was there. I saw your logo.
It's working.
It's working.
So we've got about 50, and we really are focused on this primary geography, but we take the approach that if anyone in Wisconsin wants to become certified, we're willing to do that. Mostly because, as long as you're not going to use our logo in Minnesota or Illinois, we're not too picky.
When I first interacted with Neil about family friendly, I was like, what do you mean another school district did it? I have to see more, I have to learn more, right? And so then he sent me the survey that we need to do, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised at how competitive our benefits are. And the idea of we are a family friendly workplace. But then when it became a financial piece, I was like, oh, what does that mean? Well, like he said, it's very different for us than it would be for a non-public entity. So to me, the job board and also marketing that this is in becoming a partner seems like a very reasonable $500 to spend, but I really feel like it needs to be a conversation at this table to make that decision.
I'll also offer as well, I think one of the things we really try in that immediate term recruitment and retention thing, it gives leadership language and a tool to use in those conversations to say, we've been evaluated by an independent organization, our benefits do stand up to muster. We took the time to get this certification, and it creates a language and a structure for that kind of conversation to happen, which I think can be really helpful, because sometimes it can be difficult to figure out how to put language around that, this basket of benefits that we're really talking about. So just to bolster, I think, what Becky was saying and how we see other employers use it.
So Neil, to be certified, you have to do the survey and find out the value of our benefits compared to others in the area, or what?
So the matrix has, for each benefit that we ask about, there's a point value that we've already assigned to that benefit. So for example, if we talk about your healthcare benefit, we ask about the annual net exposure of an employee and family. So that is essentially, I kind of joke, like if crap hits the fan that year, what is your total out of pocket plus your premium liability, essentially, would be the two main pieces. If you're below $15,000 a year, you're gonna get 25 points on our matrix. If you're between 15 and 20, you're gonna get 20 points on our matrix, and then there's another gap to 25,000. And so that approach is really designed to say, okay, if you've got $15,000 or less in annual net exposure, that's a really strong benefit relative to the market, and we're gonna give you more points on the matrix for that benefit. So, the team here can go through that matrix, highlight everything that you offer, and just add those points up, and we'll know where you fall in our ranking system, essentially. So if you have over 100 points on our matrix, you're gold. If you're between 75 and 100, you're silver, and if you're between 50 and 75, you're bronze. And so I don't know if that exercise has been done yet, but it can be done very easily. Just sit down and like highlight, like, okay, we do this, we do this, we do this. Here's how we perform relative to the market.
In our rough estimate, we were silver. And again, it was rough, it was Shannon and I sitting and talking back and forth and then saying, hey Sharon, what about this? Okay.
Does that answer your question? Does that help?
How does the impact of the different levels? I mean, what impact, is that just the score that the employer got?
Yep, it is.
So
And
outside of that, it doesn't have much
we don't
value.
vary.
I mean,
Well, I think I would caution that I think it has value, particularly, most people know what gold means. And so for employers who are gold, they say we're gold level because people kind of intuitively understand what that means. For employers who aren't gold, we always say benefits are a journey. We're not asking you to revamp your healthcare benefit right now. We're asking you to kind of embark on that journey and think about your benefits in this way. And so I think that if you're silver, you're a certified family-friendly workplace. That's what you are. And there's not any differentiation that we provide beyond simply, on our website, if you click in on a particular employer's profile, it will say if you're silver certified or gold certified. But everybody receives the same sort of support from us in the program.
so how would a community member use your website? Or is it just while they're looking for jobs or those kind of things? Is that when they use family friendly?
Right now, it would be primarily a tool for recruiting and retaining. So yes, that if you were looking for work, this would be a place that you would go to look and see what employers are certified in Osceola. So right now in the village, Cage Innovation is certified, F&M Plastics, both out in the industrial park. Osceola Medical Center is certified. I'm pretty sure that's everybody. Oh, the Chamber is certified. And so those organizations are listed as certified family-friendly workplaces on our program. As the program evolves, we're working to add other facets. So for example, we want to do a community certification program because we think from a talent attraction perspective that's really important, but that's down the road. So the primary utility of this is in recruiting and retaining talent from your seat. That's really what the program would bring from a value perspective to you.
I think with that data of the shrinking workforce, having another avenue of getting our jobs posted and helping, it's another levering tool to appeal to those people. And I think it seems like it's a win regardless. My first question was gonna be what other schools are doing, because like Becky said, we're not competitive at all. So, but we're competing for the same teachers that are coming out of those universities and that are coming from the metro and that are coming from these neighboring communities, because we want the best for our kids here in our community. So, yep.
Thank you. Do you need more from us tonight?
I don't believe it's an action,
It's not
item.
an
It's
action
just a
item.
presentation and then.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. And if anyone ever has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I like your shoes.
Thank you.
Do wear the Osceola green on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a planner.
Yeah.
These are the shoes I have left, basically.
So we will go on to B, which is review and approve substitute teacher compensation.
All right. So I have some documents for you to check out and look at. So again, it's just teacher, but I wanted to make sure that the question was asked, well, what about support staff? That we walk through that as well. So you can see the wages, so we're starting at the bottom for support staff. The sub wages in 2022, 23, and then that we adjusted based on our compensation study. And then the increase from last year is then you can see the 24, 25. So that's where the compensation for the subs for those positions are.
Becky, I'm really sorry, and I apologize for being a terrible human being, because
I didn't email you this when this came out, when you said, let me know if you have questions. I do have a question. And I knew I had a question, but I couldn't remember what it was. I don't remember. What does this look like for example, myself, when I held a substitute teacher license, even though I'm not a certified teacher?
I think
If
you're
I were
asking
to
a question that is not to do with this, is what I'm hearing you say, like, what am I gonna get paid if I'm support staff that subs for a teacher?
But I hold a substitute teacher's license, so I would be a teacher. Say I'm
Because when
retiring
we
from the
have a-
district, say I'd retired from the district. I am able to be a valid substitute teacher.
Are you asking about the retiree part of this?
Well, yeah, say I'm retiring from, I've retired from the district. Say I was in my old role as special ed assistant, so that was a support staff role that I worked. I retired, but I have a substitute teaching license.
You didn't retire as a teacher, but the board can decide whatever they want as far as rules, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, that's, again, that would be, up to you all to make a decision. I can ask the other school districts, can you go to the other? So actually, to go to the story behind this, Gunnar and I were at the, University of Minnesota, Michigan game, cheering for Michigan, of course, and was sitting next to, lo and behold, Brian Marks's supervising teacher from Clear Lake. And he talked about the sub rate and that they had a bump when they were a retired teacher and how awesome that was. And I came back and I said to Shannon, wow, did you know this? And she's like, yeah, I heard that. And I said, oh, I haven't, okay. And then we then looked at Middle Border Conference and saw, oh, there it is, Prescott does it as well. So really trying to build that pride and instill that pride in our own. They use employee, if you see, that's what I was trying to show you. So they use, if you were a previous employee and you're coming back to sub for us, we will pay you that rate. So again, that's a board decision. I don't think it wasn't something we took into consideration because that was putting the cart way before the horse, because we're saying, hey, can we increase at all to start with? Because we recognize also that we're on a tight budget.
Yeah.
So when you look at, let me just get out a little bit more. Just wanted to make sure that you saw like Middle Border, what the average was 150.23 and where we fall. And then looking at the average, and I just put our neighbors. Neighbors, it sounded nice, being neighborly, where we were, okay? Thanks, April. So then if you go back to this one, so again, the short-term daily rate, you can see our history of teacher sub pay. So long-term sub, we do that automatic. We take that the bachelor's first year, that's that rate of the 20 consecutive days. If someone steps in, they're getting paid the first year teacher wage. It's the variable. And you can see in 14-15, we were paying $100 a day, 19-20, 110, and then in 2021, we moved it to 130, and that's where we've been. So the proposal was to go to 155, which if you look back to that chart, right, it's right around the average, and then 170 for the retired. And I put Osceola teachers, and then I have the asterisk, because right, I looked with Sharon, said, if we did this, when would we want it to go? And she's like, this would be a good week, because we're starting the new pay period. So that's why that asterisk is there. But if you wanted to entertain this and wanted to give some specific pieces, if you're a retired employee and hold a sub license, and then you can step in for the 172, we will entertain that for our people always.
I'm a firm believer in recognize it's hard to have subs, and I think we need to have quality subs in front of our kids, because they're in front of our kids. I would like to see it increased. And my only thought going back to was just seeing it said for retired Osceola teachers. Personally, I think if you've retired from our district and say a support staff role, but you're eligible and you hold a substitute teaching license, I think you should be paid at the retired rate if you're filling in as a substitute teacher. If that's,
If we could have a license, if you're a licensed substitute, you retire, just similar to what Prescott had,
right,
a Prescott employee.
right. Cause I don't care what class you work, a substitute teacher is a substitute teacher.
I just think it's important to make this job something that brings people in here to want to do it. I know someone that teaches in St. Croix Falls. It's me, and I talk to substitute, it's me, hi, I am the client.
You are the client.
But I've talked to substitute teachers that will not sub here because our pay is low here.
Yeah.
So they've already ruled out Osceola as one of their choices. And we've had discussions at this table about, sick days and, we don't want staff to be burned out. But when we don't have subs, we have a teacher for teacher that's happening. So a teacher's using their prep, which is their time to make their classroom better, their curriculum better, everything about their job better. But we need them now to fill in for a teacher that's gone. We need to make this an enticing thing. I'm all for this, because like I said, I've heard from the mouth of substitute teachers, they will not look at Osceola to sub. And it's not because it's a bad place, it's straight up numbers. So
if you flip back, again? Well, I think it's important. When you talk about $200 a day to drive to Hudson.
Yeah.
Or $70 less to stay in Osceola.
I'm driving to Hudson.
Same with New Richmond. So feel free to go above the 155.
I was just gonna ask what our budget is.
Yeah,
and what
It's
happened
hard
last year.
because you fluctuate every year depending, you don't know, particularly if you get into those long-term sub rates.
But I don't feel like our sub budget we have not hit 100%.
No,
I mean,
we certainly haven't hit 100%, and I think we average probably about 15,000 a year.
Especially to Corey's point, we're paying people their hourly wage.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
they
we
can't.
can't, yes.
You can't find something. But of course, that could get blown out of the water if you had a couple of injuries or
Absolutely,
things happen,
but
something.
I'd
So
still
it's hard, it is hard to budget for it, but increasing the pay by $15 a day, or if the board chooses to hire, certainly not going to put us into a position where we
I'd also argue though that again, if someone were to miss a lot of time from an injury, we want someone most qualified to want to do that job.
absolutely.
And again, that money is what's gonna do it.
I did have someone ask me if we do this, and I don't know if it's where it's written down or what, will they still have provided lunches?
That's the board decision.
So,
And that's thousands of dollars, so
Yeah.
that you recognize
Yeah.
that, it's a benefit, but it is, I think was $1,700 or $1,800 that we're paying,
people are utilizing it? Okay.
a lot of people,
Clearly,
every day.
I was just very,
Yeah.
It does amaze me though that New Richmond, which isn't that far, Somerset,
When you talk about last place, that's us right now.
I know, but, I mean,
I
think
don't love
that
but thank
New
you.
Richmond, it's 10 miles, I don't know,
Yeah,
or Somerset is 13 miles,
yeah.
and even, so go back to the, we're still lower than that,
Mhm.
but can you go back to the other slide? The other thing that surprises me, so if we were to approve that amount, what happens to the short-term daily rate, because that's still like at or sub rate? Is that based off of the first step of the salary schedule, or just arbitrary?
Yeah, it's just history.
So
So
that
that's
would have
all
to
we-
change too?
That's all we're approving right now,
Is the short term.
is the short term. The long term is set.
And that fluctuates based off of an increase, obviously.
Oh, so this,
It's just the short
this
term.
is just short-term
Yeah,
daily.
yeah.
Any clue like how close we get in our sub budget? Like to utilizing it?
I don't even think we hit 80%
Yeah,
last year.
60.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think I've watched it every year and
I mean, are we able to look at going to 165 and 180?
if you want.
Well, are we comfortable entertain that even. Shannon,
Yeah.
business manager role.
Yeah, well, you have to think, you're going, it's $15 additional dollars a day now, so it'd be $25 additional dollars. It takes a lot of that to add up to thousands and thousands of dollars. So it seems like it's a lot, right? But you take that difference to say it takes a lot of those days to add up to tens of thousands of dollars.
And I think it's important to note that that includes a free lunch, so there's like a hidden, let's just say $5 in there.
So do we currently offer, I was like, I didn't know if just some schools are doing their Scott, that is,
We
okay.
offer it.
I like that we offer it, I mean, it clearly makes a difference to some people, but it's an expense.
So Becky, does that also impact, so when teachers don't use their personal days, they get paid the sub rate or they get paid their daily rate?
It's a flat rate.
Oh, okay, so that, this doesn't impact that, no.
Good question.
I mean, we would
Yeah.
rather that they use their days for their own mental health and all of
Absolutely.
that. And if we had more subs, it would be beneficial, but sometimes it doesn't work out.
Can you go back please one more time, April, to that other slide? Thank you.
And yes, we would be out doing, with the plan, St. Clair Falls. So you can just send all those up, so.
Not by a lot though.
Not by a lot, no.
Not by a lot.
But a free lunch,
Some
But you know what happens, then St. Croix Falls will raise their
Exactly,
so
and that's,
much.
and
So
that's
it's
what,
just that whole thing.
you saw what Somerset did last year, they were sitting right with us, and they just said boom, 50. And they just went right to 185.
Well, because they were competing with Hudson.
And New Richmond's,
Mhm.
so they just matched.
Do we go higher?
so I would make a motion that we,
Are you making a motion?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I said. I would make a motion that we would approve our short-term daily sub rate to $185 for a full day. And an even 200 full day for retired Osceola employees. I so move.
I'll second. I'm getting there, just wait a minute. No. Further discussion?
The reason I like that number is I'm a little bit competitive, and the realization is I can name teachers that we lost to Hudson, Richmond. They might not be our direct neighbor, but we are competing with them.
We've lost paras for the same, like, we're
Absolutely.
losing everybody because we
And
aren't
sub
keeping
rates
up.
are one avenue, but I would rather know that our best educators are in the classroom every day, that then they need a personal day or a sick day, that they take those and use them
And
as subs to
honestly,
fill those.
having kids in this district still, if I know, and I know some of you can picture exactly what I'm talking about. I can picture a retired teacher coming back to sub one of my kids. I know that the sub for that day is a great sub to have. Like,
Yeah.
that in itself as a parent.
And those
Makes me
teachers
feel
are gonna,
better.
Well, and I think it brings comfort to the staff as well,
correct,
Yeah.
because they know them and,
Very true.
because you know, Corey, as a teacher, even if you are out, when you come back, there's a lot more work that has to happen
Yeah.
because you were absent, because the
Sometimes it's
sub
a
was
guessing
in
game
there.
of what am I coming back to?
Right,
Depending
because
on
the
who's
sub that was there didn't do everything
Yeah.
that you were expecting or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's,
yeah, oh, I don't disagree, but we can't fix it.
I was just saying, our support staff rates are so low.
It's still better than it was,
I am,
right, and it's,
I
we've
know.
got room to grow, we
Yeah,
can't.
we have them.
Yep.
Because we need to have just as equally important and wonderful people in our support staff roles,
Mhm.
our kids. Anyway,
So
All
185 and 200.
185 and 200,
And that includes free lunch.
that includes a free lunch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you. It's good for our kids. It's good
guess
for
what
our
will be on
students.
St. Louis next agenda?
I can't wait to get to school. I'm gonna be.
There's a classroom at the sub.
I might get yelled at.
Just gonna slide this here.
I don't feel good, I'm probably using the system.
Improving our academic achievement with accountability through data-driven practices, donation recognitions.
Just really wanted to,
Thank you.
I just wanted to take it.
Go for it.
Just wanna take a minute to make sure that we're recognizing and acknowledging some pretty great donations that we've received. So Edward Jones, unsolicited by us, called us and said, hey, we'd like to do a school supply drive, are you good with that? Of course we're good with that, that's awesome. So they dropped off their stuff, and all the principals took it back to their buildings, so that was fantastic. Anonymous donor, doesn't want any name tied to it, but $10,000 donation for negative lunch balances. And that's all been taken care of in the district office, so the people who ended it negative last year, money has been applied to their accounts, and they got notification that said this is a one-time opportunity. And it also includes some really great information about how the budget works, and it's about $100 for a high school student to eat breakfast and lunch a month. So when you think about that, over time, that does add up. That was fantastic that they put that together. And then lastly, a bird weather PUC, did anybody know what that was before they saw that? Yeah, me either. Had to look it up when the person emailed from the community and said, hey, I use this to figure out what owls were actually on my property up north, so I could build the right owl houses, which I thought was really cool, and wanted to donate to us. And it's now in the hands of our 7th grade science teacher, who's really excited.
Oh, boy.
I love it.
So just some really, and I mean, when you think about this, these are people who didn't have to do this, and they reached out.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you
on
for,
Sunday night.
thank you for the human cards too, and for getting this on the agenda.
Thank you.
Becky, will the rest of the $10,000, will it just go to cover the negative balances in the future?
Yes. That's what they designated, the
Awesome.
people who made the donations. This is the plan, we want to do that. And we've had other people reach out and want to know how they can make donations to take care of kids with food. So we're working on that internally to figure out how to make an opportunity happen.
Super awesome.
Do we need to take action?
Nope, it was
No.
just.
Just the recognition.
B, OES building goals. Julie's been anxiously waiting her turn over there.
Yes, I have. With me tonight is Patricia Kramer. So Patricia is our reading specialist, and she is brilliant, and the expertise she has with reading, it blows my mind every single day because I continue to have many, many questions. Before we even start, I'm a little stressed out about Neil because Neil basically said one mistake on our end with these little kids and we've destroyed the world. That's what I heard. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Word for word.
Good luck with it. That I even looked at Patricia like, uh-oh.
So you're the problem.
I guess it comes right down, yep, here's the problem. So, but, putting that aside, we put some stuff together for you guys. I will probably talk fast, but before we even dig into the academic and social emotional data, I just wanted to say like the ultimate goal that we have as we move forward since, last year from November on, it's all about building and growing that 4K4 system, and embracing our unity as a team. And I believe, right now we are doing that. We are doing amazing things with staff in both buildings, which is super cool because though that whole shared staff position is always looked at in such a negative lens, we're able to do some different things being a 4K4 system right now where staff are excited to go see what's going on down in the other building to see what kind of like ELA pieces that we can put in play. We're doing some things with special education right now and bringing some expertise in both directions, doing the same thing with our school counselors and to be able to flip-flop some different roles and doing some things for SEL and just all the different things that we are doing. And teachers are bringing it to me with these different ideas too. So it's not just like the Julie show, let's just make everybody run back and forth all day. They're excited to do it because all we do is stress 4K4, like that's who we are now. So just wanted to kind of celebrate that and how we're doing that through trust, communication, passion, that shared vision, and then just everybody's being so flexible, and it's super cool right now. So yay. Now we're gonna look at the fall data. Going to start with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. There's a lot going on these slides because a lot of you might remember last year I broke it down to so many different things and had 1 bazillion sites. So instead we're trying to condense it a little bit. But with this fall data, it's a snapshot. So the same thing that I always communicate with families when this kind of stuff comes out. Like this is not a make it or break it. This is one piece of data that yes, it's a composite score of all the different skills, but it's still one day student with a computer, that's it, and then they're getting a score. But we use this data for almost everything that we do at the beginning of the year. It truly drives what we are doing. So new this year, our second grade crew, they did take the MAP assessment. That has not happened in Osceola for a few years now. Gosh, what did they tell us? Maybe 5-6 years ago, I think second grade took MAP. And then everything moved at the elementary school to Fastbridge. So now at second grade, being at the intermediate school, we move forward with MAP. Okay, so very, very different tests for students. And as you can see, I just broke it down, literacy and math. Looking very simple numbers here of how many students are at or above benchmark, meaning they're where they're supposed to be at this time, and how many students are not. So that drives to what we need to be able to do. Also, the cool thing with this tool is it's breaking it down by the different skills and the different targets that we need to hit to help the student grow. So remember, second grade has not seen a test like this in a while. It gets harder as they go. They're on laptops where they're used to iPads. So I mean, it's very different for them, but we're not going to not do it just because we're afraid of that. Yeah. So, I mean, there we are with our second graders. Third grade, fourth grade, yeah, similar to what it has been in the past. And then also always remembering that fall data, sometimes I feel like it's an excuse. However, there's that summer slide in there too. So there have been years in the past where we haven't even screened in the fall, and we would just wait until winter and say, hey, we're gonna take the kids where we get them, and we're gonna do what we're gonna do. That stresses teachers out just because they need, they're still lively, we're just trying to get this fall data. Right, Patricia? Yes. And then you can see, so literacy and math. When you look at what we gathered at the elementary school level, now it's Fastbridge. So I did not put 4K stuff up there right now because these are tiny little 4-year-olds that are just excited to be able to walk down the hallway and go to the bathroom. So we're not gonna screen them right now. That's way too much. So looking at our kindergarten, looking at our first grade, you can see that our kindergarten looks pretty solid. But if you remember before when I was screaming and hollering about the excitement of what our 4K teachers did last year with these incoming kindergartners, they rocked it. So those numbers are very similar to what it was in the spring when the 4K graduated their way to kindergarten. And then our first grade, so our first grade right now, so they have left kindergarten into first grade. Yes, there's some different things that we are going to work on and do some different things. First grade team is amazing, and they're all in right now. I've had many meetings with Patricia, myself, and they know exactly what to do, and we are starting out those pieces. Now for the very fun piece of Act 20, I'm gonna do a quick surface level here, but Patricia's gonna take over as she is definitely the expert right now with Act 20. But you can see the one part that I'm gonna highlight, and then let Patricia explain a little bit more what this means, is if we were in the world of it's now winter, okay, we are moving forward with Act 20, and Act 20 is stating that students that are scoring or lower in the 25th percentile and lower are going to be moving forward with personal reading plans, okay? If we were there right now, and again, not the exact same screeners, not the exact same anything, but this is a prediction, so we're correlating our own data here. Fastbridge is not the same as Ames Web. Patricia will talk about that, but a prediction. So this is not for real, but kind of. This is where we would be sitting right now. We would have 6 students in kindergarten that would need a personal reading plan, 47 students in first grade. That's almost half of the first grade class would be on a personal reading plan. Our second grade at 42, and then our third grade at 17. Okay, so there is a huge jump in first grade, which I did not realize this until Patricia explained it to me. So again, why she is here, the expert behind all of this, of what that test or that screener is doing in first grade and why it is so hard for first graders. Okay, your turn.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll start out with the kindergarten score. The reason why they're so low at 6 students is it's really a combined score here. So we're looking at letter sounds as well as letter names and combining it to see the score. The cutoff score is, I believe, 21. So they have to have 20 or less to be in the 25th percentile. We have about 6 students. That's a rough guesstimate right now because Fastbridge assessment is a little bit different than Ames Web here. It's more similar in first, second, and third grade. That's why the numbers are so low for the 6 students there. I had to kind of guess on some of the numbers here.
First grade, the reason why the numbers shoot up in first grade is because we're no longer looking at letter sounds and letter names. We're now looking at how many words they can read a minute. So in first grade, at the beginning of the year in fall, we're expecting them to read 18 plus words per minute. So we're going from letter names to letter sounds, then jumping actually to reading in a passage. I will say fast bridge passages are a little bit harder. They're not decodable, which means that each word you can hear the correct sound that's there. Ames Web Plus passages are decodable. So my hopes are that these numbers will come down some, especially with what we have in place in first grade going forward with WIN.
Remind me what the decodable is.
A decodable would be like a CDC word, like cat, at. You can sound all those sounds out. So if you can sound those sounds out, it might take them some time, but within a minute, we probably could get more words if we can sound them out. Now in like fast bridge, one of the words was family. You can't sound all those sounds out. And some of them, like they're learned farther down in the road. So it's harder for them to do that passage. And that's why we have so many that are high. I'm really hoping by winter we don't see this spike. Like I said, we're really driving instruction. We took a core screener for phonics to look at where the kids' needs were in first grade, and we're really hitting those needs for first grade with support from interventionists as well as the classroom teachers. So that's what we're doing with first grade. Second grade, they have 42 students as well. Again, they're still learning to read in this grade. There's still phonics concepts they have to go over, they have to learn still, so we're sitting at 42. The reason why we get the dip down in third grade is because now we're reading to learn, okay? So we have learned the skills to read, now we need to apply those skills. So a lot of those students have it, so that's why you're seeing that slide going down at that point at 17 students. First, second, and third grade, their screener is going to be on oral reading fluency. So that means I put a passage in front of you. How many words can you read in a minute? There's 2 passages, we combine those scores, and that's how we get the oral reading fluency.
See why I brought Patricia with?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing a friend.
But yeah, this is the deep work that we have been doing. And the greatest part for me is that I get to sit shoulder to shoulder with Patricia and learn so much from her moving forward with all of this. And in my mind, what I always keep saying, and Patricia knows this too, and along with our grade level teachers, a lot of these things that Act 20 is bringing forward for the state of Wisconsin, we are doing. It just looks different. So we are already doing these things and screening kids and figuring out what they need and helping them and supporting them in interventions. Tier 2, Tier 3, all the things that you've heard me talk about before. It's just that now Wisconsin, with Act 20, is coming out with, okay, this personal reading plan. Now you need to document it, it needs to look like this, and here's the criteria that you need to hit. So we're already doing it, we just now have to put it out there with what Wisconsin is asking us to make sure that we're checking those boxes. So you hear a lot about this and the stress that it's bringing and the work that it's going to bring to districts. We don't feel that. Now I'm hearing Neil a little bit more, but we weren't before that. So there's where we are with Act 20.
All right, so with those 112 students, like if you took them all and added them all up, we have 112. Their next steps would be a personal reading plan. A personal reading plan is a document that shows their strengths. It also shows their deficiencies and what they need to work on, and then our plan forward to carry that out and what that looks like. We also need to progress monitor weekly, which means each week we have them do something similar each week, and we're checking to see if their progress is increasing over time. And that's really what their personal reading plan is. We go for 10 weeks. At 10 weeks, we check in with families and let them know if they're being successful, and we can exit or if we need to continue on with this personal reading plan. But like I said, all of those 112 students would have a personal reading plan. I would be creating those alongside with teachers, and those would get sent home to families so that families know where their children are at.
Who does the progress monitoring, the teacher, or do you do that?
That'll be a discussion to be had. Typically it's our interventionists that do it, but some of these students, we might be able to get away with teachers being able to do it, but that's still a discussion to be had.
And isn't it there a 15-day window that you have to get the plan completed by too?
Yeah.
So it's
And
very
10 days, and I also should mention there's a diagnostic screener too, so you do your Ames Web screener. And that gives you the 25th percentile or lower. Then you take it to do a diagnostic. We could use Fast Bridge. I would really like to use our core phonics screeners because that's going to give me a deeper, detailed look at where our kids are at. And that's where I find out where their deficiencies are. It's not like we're just reaching for the stars, like, oh, we think this kid needs like fluency. We're actually using research-based information to find that.
And this really got rolled out from the Wisconsin legislator, but you know, right away my brain goes to these kindergarten through third grade. You house fourth grade over there. I know that your job is encompassing all of our readers, but this is taking a vast majority of your time right now, getting this out and rolling. But what benefit is it to the other grades?
We're ignoring them.
Okay.
No.
I know you're not.
There's a huge benefit, because I mean, when this rolls out and we're focusing more on these skills, I mean, we already are, but we're gonna be even more hyper-focused. It's gonna help these third graders transition to fourth grade, where they're not getting phonics instruction, because that's not needed in fourth grade, because they're solid in it, and we don't need to do a tier 2 or a tier 3 with them. So yes, it will transfer from grade to grade, and I think it's really important for us to have this, but we need to get these kids reading in third grade, so they can be successful in further grades.
And so you'll, in the upper grades where you're really gonna see the benefits of all of this in just a few years, as we are catching these kids right now and then moving them along, so.
Because remember, when it comes to reading, it's not how fast you can read, but that's an indicator of if you can read the words, then you don't have to spend so much time decoding, so you can spend the time comprehending. So that's how it all ties together.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah, so,
I paid attention.
just wanted to you guys have been hearing about Act 20, so wanted to give you a little bit of a deeper understanding with that, so.
And can I also interrupt and remind us that we made reductions, so we don't have the number of interventionists we've had before.
Okay.
Thank you.
And our teachers right now, with the support of Patricia, they're gonna be able to rock this, and they're going to be able to progress monitor and do all of these things, like they are. All of our ELA teachers across the board, all the way from 4K, for sure up to 3, but we went all the way up through 5th grade. It took at least units 1 through 4 of the letters training, which that's also part of this, and we have to, but what a learning experience that has been. And to where our teachers that took 1 through 4 last year are now finishing it out and doing 5 through 8. So even getting more knowledge with everything that goes into reading. So it's a good thing, a very, very good positive thing. Okay, so that being said, these building goals, put together, you know, both buildings, 4K4. I did not focus on Act 20. I really hemmed and hawed and went back and forth with that, but I was like, nope, there's a lot more to everything that we're doing all day long than just Act 20. So building goals, it's been similar to what we've done before, but at the same time looking at still a certain population of students. So now this is just, again, talking about kindergarten and first grade, and with FastBridge, it looks different. There's not so much percentiles and all these different things. It's different categories where you're at risk or you're not. It's basically, that's it. Very different on how they are taking scores and correlating that to what is at grade level according to their test, I guess is the best way to put it. So I combined literacy and math here for kindergarten and first grade, and really focusing on the students right now that have scored like in that risk category. We're gonna focus on getting 80% of them out of that category of at risk. And we can do that. Like, this is approachable, we can do it. How? It's that tier 1 instruction. We're focusing on our standards, and everything is at grade level. Those are the 3 biggest things that, I mean, people who know me very well now, that's all I'm talking about. So once we get out of that, that's where things it starts to just spiral down. We have to make sure that we are always focusing on our tier 1. Tier 1 means all kids. So all kids are getting grade level work at like the grade level standards. When we break it down now for our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, this is where it gets a little tricky because of where we are with different percentiles. So there's been a study conducted by NWA MAP on how they are correlating their scores to the forward and what that all means. The forward exam has switched their terminology, and which means it also is switching like their scales. So what we know right now, which it could very likely still change, is you'll see up top where the red circle is. So it's saying that in 2nd grade on the NWA MAP, it's students who are 75th percentile or higher would be at grade level. But then 3rd grade, it's 70th percentile. You go down to 4th grade, or I'm sorry, go up to 4th grade, it's 65th percentile. All right, so it's not where we can just say, if you hit the 60th percentile, you're at grade level. I kinda think they're trying to make this super difficult for us right now, and it's fine, we can be mad at them, they know it, but we're not afraid of it either. So this goal looks funny, because there's a lot to it, and the goal is still trying to get 80% of those students who are not there yet, there. Alright, but it's still broken down, we could even call it like broken down into different subcategories, because I'm going off of different percentiles. And again, strategies are exactly the same. Like, regardless if, unfortunately, we had to make those reductions with interventionists, regardless of whatever else has happened, yet it's very positive as we're moving forward with this system. Tier 1, standards, grade level, like, we've got it, we can do it. And that's the cool thing. As you look here, same thing with math, you can see the different percentiles, like, it's crazy. So this was a study, again, from MAP, correlating with forward, all the things. Okay, and then going into the overall well-being, kind of like what we said at the beginning, as we are creating our system, the really neat thing right now is that we are being able to bring back like one person teaching that SEL stuff. So SEL is in our Character Strong. Character Strong is something that we brought forth at the intermediate school for the past several years, and it actually goes down to the elementary school level. 4K is doing something called Slumberkins, and there's ginormous stuffed animals that come with it, but the ginormous stuffed animals, the expectation is they have to stay on the shelf, because it's not going to be a thing where it's touching all kids and whites. So they know it sits on the shelf, but then they look at the animal as it goes with the SEL standard. It's fine. I didn't even show you pictures. They're huge. They're super cute, but they wanted it. It's a good thing. All right, so with this overall well-being, looking at how we can, like 90% of that social and emotional like skills, it all comes from everything we're doing, and it all ties in with behavior. So then what I did is I broke down, looking at last year's EduClimber data, that's the minors and the majors. I only looked at minors. Minors could be anything from like running down the hallway. Okay, so very simple, basic things that we were not following our expectations. Then I got super excited and dug into it like even deeper. So this is the whole entire year of last year. I was able to sort it by just 4K through 4. So our 5th grade, all of those are not even in here. But all the minors recorded last year, documented in the EduClimber for the elementary school, were 423, at the intermediate school, 373. All right, so now you go down to the next category there, and I have only general education students. So this is where I started to get, like, I was really sorting things. So again, just minors of our general education population. So elementary school, 381, intermediate school, 95. Okay, now you look at the next one over, and it's saying only students that are supported on IEPs. All right, so now when I say supported on IEPs, it could be anywhere from speech to just having like an OT goal to anything. OES drops down to 42, OIS goes up to 278.
Why?
I know why. It's the different ways that we brought forward our expectations on what goes into our EduClimber, like resource hub housing thing for data, and how each of us at that time communicated that with staff. So that is my only reason on why. Otherwise, I'm lost, just like all of your faces. That's like, wait a minute. And I did it a couple times to make sure I wasn't pushing the wrong button. But to my understanding, that has to be the only reason why, because I've always communicated, tier 1 is all kids. So tier 1, PBIS, responsive classroom, all the things, it's everyone. So you are, no matter who that child is, if there's a minor happening, we're still tracking it. So meaning, if, like, you can break it down to so many things are happening in the lunchroom, to so many things are happening outside on the playground. I still want to know, regardless of who you are at that tier 1 level, where our high zones are. It was not communicated that same way before, so then certain students were never put in.
Is there less IEPs at that elementary school?
Yes, but many are in that process of going down that route, to where some things might have been housed on spreadsheets, or some things were housed elsewhere to be able to bring forward if they were sitting around that table for a referral. Got it. So just some different ways of beliefs on what goes where. But yeah, when I put this together, I was like, huh. I don't know, unless I'm missing something, Becky, what's your brain saying there?
Yeah, I think it definitely is how we house and track information and where it goes.
What
where it
goes in,
goes
what
from.
doesn't go in.
Yeah. And I've always just been a believer that it goes in. It's just, it's helping, and it's not truly just looking at that individual child, it's being able to, like, EduClimber is so cool where you could just take anything and see how many times this happened, like you can break down by month. Guess the highest month of behaviors. December. Santa! Okay.
No, it's supposed to be Santa.
Yeah. So these are the last ones. This is just how we get there. It's more than just what is happening during our morning meetings with SEL, during our different specialist rotation. It's the Osceola way. So that Osceola way, it's our PBIS expectations, and these are the new signs that we were able to order. They go throughout the intermediate school and elementary school, so it's exactly the same 4K4 system. And this is what we're talking about with kids nonstop. You can see the last thing that's added on, like as it's broken out by category, you're seeing like it's chieftain pride. Okay, why is it that we want you to do this in the bathroom or in the hallway? Like, because we're chieftains and we're gonna be proud of it. It's the Osceola way. And then it's just a great big matrix. So that stuff is all over. If you walk through the buildings right now, you can see those signs. And yeah, that's how we are going to help get that 90% to where it needs to be, and we go from there. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining us.
See, brilliant, knows her reading.
We knew.
No, I realized that. It's just in here. We are mad.
We planned it.
Right, uniforms.
Oh, Becky wants school uniforms, I heard.
Put that out there, please.
Oh, gosh, it will be now.
Any questions? Alright, thanks ladies. 7, engage in continuous improvement of student support systems and programs. A, review and approve 24-25 private school transportation contracts.
Same scenarios that we have given in the past, we just have to go through and approve that contract for the private school. As you can see for 24-25, that per cost per day per student has gone down slightly from 23-24. We use a calculation that DPI gives us that encompasses our transportation costs, the number of days that we transport those students to school, and the number of students.
So our options,
Interesting that it went down.
our options are to
Because
provide,
the cost, I'm sorry,
no, you're fine.
you know, it's not necessary, it takes the cost of the program, right? So there were less costs within the program last year, there could be many factors, right?
Right.
Yeah, you would assume it would go up, but,
I'm not complaining.
you know, I'd have to dive deep to see that. It wasn't, that big of a difference program cost wise, but.
We either bus them or we pay parents to transfer.
We bus them or we pay parents. Yeah.
So with that in mind, I would make a motion to approve the 24-25 private school transportation contracts.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? B, next meeting information. The next committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, at 5 p.m. in the district office conference room. Next board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. in the district office conference room. Looking for a motion and to roll call vote to convene in closed session pursuant to section 1985 1F of the Wisconsin statutes, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, for the purpose of reviewing a parent complaint pursuant to board policy.
I would make that motion.
Thank you. Can you do that after you?
No, you have to roll call from the first.
Alright. Roll call.
Yeah.
Jan?
Yes.
Coy? Yep. Calder?
Yep.
Myself is yes. We will take just a quick break here.
Break?
Thank you all.